can call it is that we assisted a lot in emergency learning, and we're very proud of that. Recently, in 2024 August, the university, as a project, established International School for Development Justice. That is still unfolding, but the whole idea is to teach programs at the master's level, fundamentally, in the UN Sustainable Development Goals, justice, climate justice, gender equity, even in sports, human well-being and that sort of thing. So that's another exciting thing that's happening. And in fact, what we have been selected because as a campus that could best do that because of our online asynchronous technology. And hence the whole designation, global, really, rebranded as such to capture our strategic thrust and trajectory. So, yes?
Cool. So also, so for example, if an organization, a property, ready to start, Sobers? Can I ask the question? Oh, yeah. So let's suppose there's a development in Dominica who, for instance, gonna maybe recruit a number of locals to be trained in a particular skill, for example, service, for example, the high tourism.
Your voice is dropping a bit, though.
Oh, sorry. So, for example, there's a high service, with tourism, the service industry here is huge. So would the university be able to put on a training session, let's say if a new development is coming in, a training session that would gear towards whatever that facility is trying to do here, or whatever the property is trying to do here, but it would be tailored to, is that kind of things that you
Definitely. And in fact, I don't know tourism is one of them per se, but Dr. Kimon Joseph in Dominica, for instance, has already put out a schedule of programs on the CPE level next year and that sort of thing. You can have a little chat with her, but definitely. And in fact, the University of West Indies itself has degrees in tourism, hospitality, and so on. But yes, the short answer again, the brief answer is yes. We can do all that, we can accommodate. It has to be viable, of course. Let us not be naive. If we are going to put on a program, some people have the erroneous view that it's online, so it's just going online and somebody just speaking. That's not it at all. You have to develop the course. You have to have subject matter experts. You have to pay people for the expertise. You have to write the program for online. You don't just, programs are not just transferred, so program is being taught at the St. Augustine campus. And we say, we want that online. And we just open up our Zoom and just place it on. That's not how it goes. There's a process. And that is why you have degrees, which we offer in learning, technology and that sort of thing, pedagogy and what have you. Because so technology design and so on, putting courses online and what have you. So it's a process, it's a science as well as an art. So yes, we do all of this, and of course the thing has to be costed. People like to say, that's the other something I want to clear up very quickly. I don't know where it comes from, but sometimes you hear people say, OU is expensive. Now, I just don't understand what that means. And I hope they're saying it less so now. When you can get to do a degree, stay at your home. Don't leave your job. There's no family upheaval. You don't leave your children and your wife or your spouse, your husband, whatever, behind. And you do a degree for 30,000 EC dollars, or thereabouts.
4-year degree?
For a bachelor's degree, Okay, I'm just giving a ballpark. I don't have the figure in my mind. And of course, you do it course by course. So you don't have to find that upfront, you know? You have to find the monies per semester. Airline ticket to America itself is $4,000, $5,000, EC dollars. And somebody can correct me, because those of you who love to go to America, you probably remember what it is. I don't have any recent recollection. What does that mean? I mean, why do we like to say our regional institutions, what we offer, are expensive? Does that mean it should be free? Again, these are an online campus. Doesn't mean that people are not working, you know. They're not online, they are not in the clouds. They are real people with families, and they have to be paid real salaries. There's nothing like a virtual salary, you know? So, and all of what Dr. Joseph and the staff are doing in Dominica, all of this facilitates the online learner as well as the in-person learner, so that there's no, when people say it's expensive and then they go off to America and pay 50,000 US, 40,000 US per semester or per year and so on. Are you saying that your university that is in the top 3% should not charge even 40,000 EC dollars for a degree, but it's okay to go to America and pay all of this? And of course, hemorrhaging, severe hemorrhaging, aspirin hemorrhaging of foreign currency into another country, which incidentally, I gather, does not necessarily, is not necessarily welcoming you now. So
you had to bring that up.
yeah. So you really have to think of where our future lies, and our future resides with the University of West Indies. In fact, Dr. Joseph hosted a lecture recently in terms of this, by Dr. Ralph Gonzalez, Comrade Ralph Gonzalez in St. Vincent. And he spoke of the West Indian civilization. And it's impossible to fathom West Indian civilization without the University of the West Indies. But if I continue further, someone will say that I'm using the platform to advertise. So
No,
I'm going to
no,
stop
no.
here. You're going to have to give me a drink after, because
yeah, that's all right. That's okay.
I'm going to be chatting on a dry throat when the real thing comes. But I'm happy for the opportunity, all the same.
But can I ask one more question? Can I say one more thing? So I mean, so here is my understanding of UWI, right? From growing up, there's 2 people from Dominica, 2 people from here, 2 people get to go to UWI. I mean, you could count them on your fingers, right? Get to go to UWI with national scholarship, and everybody else, I mean, but you say now there's more access. I know what there's more accessibility. It's not as remote the opportunity as it was then. But I don't think that news has broken through yet, right? So I am saying I think it's important that message, especially remote learning and the opportunity to get a 4-year degree sitting at your house on your couch. Well, not really, but you know what I mean. I think that needs to be front and center in the messaging, for people of the Caribbean, because, yes, it is expensive to go to the US and get educated,
Well, when did you leave Dominica, though? Because, I mean, a lot of that has changed. I mean, for instance, in Dominica, Dr. Joseph and Dr. Barry Kazimi and the other members of staff are always on the radio. You can say a lot. You can get hoarse saying things, and people don't listen. In fact, people don't even pay attention when they're driving their vehicles now. They're looking at their phones and so on. Yes, we at one time we were the best kept secret in the Western Hemisphere. I think that has changed a lot now. I mean, this year, the global campus has 5,700 thereabout students registered. That is significant. That is almost as many students registered at the Kayville campus, which is far older than ourselves. I heard the principal of the Kayville campus say recently that they've been getting an increase in Eastern Caribbean students, But when you see, and our graduation is coming up very soon, it's virtual. Dr. Joseph has the recognition of graduate ceremony, again, all part of graduating in the community so that people can partake in it. And that has been going on for years. I mean, when I walk through the city of Roseau and I see, folks who I knew, as perhaps unqualified assistant teachers and that sort of thing, and they are principals of high schools or primary schools now. That is empowering, that means a lot, and that is due to the global campus. You know what, and you may be surprised by it, and I mean nothing odd by it. But when we had our face-to-face ceremonies, which we changed, after the pandemic, just being at those ceremonies, because I was public orator, so I was attending every ceremony. Public orator reads the citations of the honorary grad. Sitting there and seeing people of all walks of life crossing the stage. But you know what always touched me? When I saw women with child, pregnant women, it told me that look at what we're doing. These people don't have to leave their homes, don't have to travel. They are conducting their lives. Obviously, that's a proxy, conducting their life, pregnancy, and getting on with it and earning degrees. That's what we're doing now. That is what we're doing now. And let me tell you, the people you see, they can't afford to go to America to get US and a foreign exchange and go to America. And if they're not able to pay, they're thrown out in the winter tempest. So that has changed. That has changed a lot. This year we have, I don't have the figure before me, but we have a bumper historical graduate list. It has been 1,000 and something. I think we have 1,400 or thereabouts. But the largest number since we started as open campus 2008 graduating.
Okay.
1,400.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, brother.
Well, be careful what you ask for. I told you.
I warned. He was forewarned. He was forewarned.
Yes, 30 minutes.
Okay.
30 minutes not enough. My heart is full.
We're gonna start, guys.
Wonderful.
1 minute. 1 minute time.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this special event organized by the SMA Alumni 2025 Alumni Committee. Please stand for the national anthem.
I love beauty, I love splendor, to all so sweet and fair. All must surely gaze in wonder at thy gifts so rich and rare. Rivers, valleys, hills and mountains, all these gifts we do all. Healthy land so like all fountains, giving cheer that warms the soul.
Well, thank you very much, Kalen Matthew. Please remain standing, everyone, as we invite Brother Egbert Jermaine to do the invocation.
God our Father, we acknowledge your beneficent goodness and love. You are worthy of our thanks and praise. We thank you for health and life. We thank you for our alma mater and the education that we have received from her. We thank you for the graduates of 74-75 who are our reason for being here this evening. Father God, as we meet here this evening to deliberate on future education in our beloved island of Dominica and how we respond to changes in education locally, regionally, and globally, we ask you to let your Holy Spirit be with us to lead, guide, and instruct us. Father, as sons of our beloved St. Mary's, we make this prayer through Christ our Lord. And together, I ask that we join in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For the kingdom, the power, and the glory are yours, now and forever. Amen.
Well, thank you very much, Brother Jermaine. And I think this, yes. Well, good evening once again, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to welcome you again to this activity this evening, a very special program, as I said, organized by the SMA Alumni Committee. They were responsible for initiating the reunion for, well, the 74-75 class, responsible for initiating this SMA reunion. It actually started as a 74-75 initiative, but mushroomed, expanded to culminate in the all-encompassing SMA alumni. So that's why alumni reunion. That is why people like me could participate, and I'm very thankful for that. I have a few things that I just want to say before we start. I know we're late, and therefore I'm not going to take up very much time, but I wanted to welcome you to what I believe promises to be a thought-provoking, forward-looking, and hopefully engaging exercise. It's one of the highlights of the St. Mary's Academy 2025 Alumni Reunion. It is both a pleasure and an honor to be here, not only as chairperson of this educational forum, but also as a proud alumnus of St. Mary's Academy, or alumnus or old boy, as we generally say. And of course, yes, some of us truly qualify as old boys, a few of us here this evening. And in every sense of the word, we could be considered old boys. But I'm not entirely sure, if everyone here would share that. But nonetheless, some of us, and I was looking forward to a friend of mine who shared a classroom with me at SMA from 102 to 204, all the way through the entire journey. But unfortunately, he's not here tonight. He was supposed to have. And I prepared something to say to him, but he's not here tonight. So, I'll have to leave it some other time when I meet him in person. Okay, I'm not entirely sure, though. One of the things I want to say is this. The journey at SMA was a very rewarding one, very fruitful. All the way to fifth form, there was the point when you got to fifth form in SMA, you had a choice as to whether you wanted to go on to sixth form or whether you wanted to leave school at that stage and start the journey of life. And a few of us chose to go to sixth form. The Sifo and Dominica State College concepts were still a little way off in the distance. As I like to say, they were far off on the horizon, and they were so far that you couldn't even see them then. But eventually, you know, the Dominica State College and Sifo would come around. But in my time, it was a sixth form of the St. Mary's Academy, and we twinned, we collaborated, if you will, with the Convent High School, shared classrooms, and did some subjects together with the same teachers. It will not surprise you if I said to you that perhaps my most enjoyable time, or the most enjoyable part of my sixth form journey was going to the Convent High School. But I am sure I'm not alone in that regard, you know? So, anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. But very quickly, let me talk about our theme this evening. And that's the response to the changing local, regional, and global realities in education. It may be a mouthful, yes, but it is also a powerful call to action. Because let's face it, the world is changing rapidly. We're grappling with climate change, artificial intelligence, digital divides, shifting economies, and a generation of students who can Google the answer to any question faster than we can finish asking it. And with the rise of AI, that speed is only accelerating. So the good news, we have the intellect, the passion, and the homegrown talent to meet these challenges, and to meet them head on. Tonight's panel features some of Dominica's finest minds who will guide us through critical conversations from curriculum relevance and teacher transformation to mental resilience, regional collaboration, and yes, the ever-important role of parental guidance or involvement. So let me take a moment to commend the classes of 74 and 75 for initiating this splendid reunion of a 93-year-old institution, St. Mary's Academy, and for including such a timely and vital discussion in the program of activities. I also need to highlight the fact that this began as the brainchild of the classes of 74 and 75, but very quickly, as I mentioned initially, mushroomed into an all-encompassing affair for SMA alumni in general, making it possible for people like me to be involved. And I think this provides the opportunity for a perfect segue into the welcome remarks that will be delivered here by Mr. Alvin Thomas, chairman of the SMA Alumni Reunion. I was looking for you, you know, I thought you had stepped out or something. So we'd like to invite Mr. Alvin Thomas to the microphone to deliver the welcome remarks.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Master of Ceremonies. Good evening, distinguished presenters, SMA Principal, Mrs. Sylvia John Baptist and Mr. John Baptist, Head of UWI Global Campus, Dr. Kimon Joseph, former SMA Principal, Brother Egbert Germain, and I also see with us here Mr. Henry Volney, Ray Harris, those being our former teachers, Volney being the history teacher, and our good Ray Harris there, English teacher. Fellow alumni who are here this evening, and those listening via the various social media broadcasts, faculty, students, friends of SMA, invited guests, members of the media, a pleasant good evening to all of you, and welcome. On behalf of the SMA 2025 Alumni Planning Committee, it is my great honor to welcome you to this educational forum, one of the centerpiece events of our reunion celebration. Tonight, we gather not only to honor our shared history under the theme, past, present, and future, a legacy of excellence, but also to confront and reflect upon a matter that lies at the heart of our nation's progress, the future of education in Dominica. Our chosen topic this evening, the future of education in Dominica, our response to the changing local, regional, and global realities in education, could not be more timely. Education today is being reshaped by technology, global interconnectedness, and shifting societal needs. Yet, even as we adapt to these realities, the value instilled by institutions like SMA, discipline, service, resilience, and faith remain critical to preparing the next generation of leaders. At this juncture, I'd really like to take a moment to recognize several of our teachers, some of them were not here with us this evening, who have helped shape who we have become today. Part of our week's activity will be the launch of a book entitled Legacy in Action, How One Man Has Transformed the Generation of Men, Brother Egbert Germain. That will be launched on the morning of Friday at a press conference at the DPSU's headquarters. So again, I'm extending an invitation to all of you who are here. It will be broadcast live as well. In that book, the author is Tony John Baptist, class of 1985. We are particularly privileged to welcome a distinguished panel of presenters this evening, all proud sons of SMA, and of course we have as well Dr. Rose Keynes LaRocque, who also taught us during the period of the 70s at the SMA, along a former teacher who helped lay the foundation for so many of us. Their perspective and insight will challenge us to reimagine education, to bridge the gaps, and to persist and to envision a system that's equitable, innovative, and responsive to our unique Dominican context. This forum is not just about reflection, but about action. It is an invitation for SMA alumni and all stakeholders to engage more deeply in shaping the educational landscape of Dominica and beyond. That must be emphasized. I encourage us to listen, to question, and to contribute meaningfully this evening. May tonight's dialogue ignite a renewed commitment to the advancement of education and, by extension, the continued development of our beloved nation. Once again, welcome, and may this forum be both enriching and inspiring for all of us. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Alvin Thomas. And since we are off to a late start, and we do apologize again for starting much later than we intended to, we want to make this program flow very quickly. And so we want to call on the next speaker to the lectern, Mrs. Sylvia John Baptist, the principal of the St. Mary's Academy.
Good evening, distinguished guests, former principals, teachers of St. Mary's Academy. Esteemed educators, policymakers. We just had a student here, he left. And friends of education. It is with great pleasure and a deep sense of purpose that I welcome you all to this important education forum under the timely, thought-provoking theme, The Future of Education in Dominica, our response to changing local, regional, and global realities in education. tonight's gathering brings together some of the finest minds and the most passionate advocates for education in our nation. It offers an invaluable opportunity to reflect, to dialogue, and to envision how we can collectively shape an education system that is not only resilient and relevant, but also responsive to the rapidly evolving world around us. We meet at this time when education, both at home and abroad, is being redefined by technological advancement, shifting economic demands, and the growing need for inclusive, lifelong learning. These realities challenge us to rethink traditional models of teaching and learning and to equip our students with skills, values, and adaptability necessary to thrive in an uncertain but opportunity-filled future. As we engage in tonight's discussions, let us do so with open minds and shared commitments to ensure that Dominica's education system remains dynamic, equitable, and forward-looking. The insights we share and the partnerships we strengthen here will undoubtedly help chart a course towards an education that truly empowers our people and sustains national development. On behalf of the 1974-1975 graduating class, I extend a warm invitation, a warm welcome to each of you. Thank you for your presence, your ideas, and your ongoing dedication to the cause of education. May tonight's forum inspire us, challenge us, and unite us in purpose as we together envision the future of education in Dominica. I thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mrs. John Baptist. Before moving on to the next speaker, I just want to take the opportunity to remind you of the launch of the book about Brother Egbert Germain, which was written by Tony John Baptist. And that will take place on Friday at a press conference being hosted by the alumni committee, SMA Alumni Committee. And that will be at the DPSU at 11:30 a.m. on Friday. So a book, interesting book written by Brother Egbert Germain and everybody who, about, not by, but about, yeah. But I have no doubt you could have written that book yourself, right? And everybody who knows about SMA, has anything to do with SMA, any connection, would have heard about Brother Egbert Germain and his very, interesting and noteworthy stint as principal of the SMA. So Dr. Joseph is waiting patiently to share some words with us because UWI is a partner in this venture, in this particular exercise. And I'm pretty sure she's very happy to come up to the lectern and share some words with us about UWI's involvement.
Good evening to everyone. I want to big up my principal, Dr. Francis Sever. Good evening to you, sir. And good evening to everyone in the auditorium, as well as those who are joining us live on the various media platforms. It is my pleasure to welcome all of you to UWI Global Campus Dominica for this education forum of the St. Mary's Academy in collaboration with UWI Global Campus. When Mr. Sobers Esprit first asked me about the idea for including a panel discussion as part of the week of activities for SMA's alumni reunion celebrations, I knew it was coming at a very busy time. Independence is busy overall, but for us at UWI, semester 1 is filled with activities and events that keep us moving from thing to thing to thing until Christmas break. However, I said yes for 2 reasons. Well, 3 reasons if I'm honest. Firstly, it was Sobers asking, and I have never ever once needed Sobers' help for something for UWI for him to ever refuse me. And so I cannot say no to Sobers. Secondly, UWI has enjoyed a good relationship with St. Mary's Academy overall, but we have come to appreciate the yes-can-do attitude of Mrs. John Baptist and her team in the time that she has been at the helm. In addition to our information sessions with the students during open days, since Mrs. John Baptist has been serving as principal, we have seen the school itself sponsor several of its teachers for continuing and professional education courses. That had never happened before. And last academic year, we partnered with education officers Daly and Maxime of the curriculum unit to host a man-to-man session that focused on the importance of tertiary level education for young men at St. Mary's Academy. And the third reason why I agreed to this collaboration, ladies and gentlemen, is perhaps the top reason of them all. I am a convent girl, and when an SMA boy asks a convent girl nicely for a collaboration, she really refuses. But let me stick to the topic, okay? When we speak about the future of education in Dominica, I am inclined, because of the nature of my work and the nature of my own research, to focus on UWI Global Campus's impact on that future. My colleagues and I continue to lament that in Dominica, at a time when we have seen the participation in continuing and professional education courses, CPE, triple from the figures we had pre-COVID, sadly, very few males have taken advantage of the opportunities to further their education and to engage in lifelong learning. For example, out of the 990 students registered for CPE for 2022-2023, only 205 were male. In 2023-2024, we had a total of 700 women in our continuing and professional education courses, but just 192 men. Last year, 2024-2025, there were only 186 males among the 935 CPE participants. In our degree programs, it's not any better. For 2024-2025, we had a total of 250 students pursuing undergraduate and graduate students from Dominica in the overall global campus. There were 200 females and 50 males. Now, you may ask, so what is UWI doing to bridge this gap? And that's a good question. For what my team in Dominica can control, which is the CPE, Continuing and Professional Education short courses, we have sought to put more traditional male programs on the offering table. Programs like Building and Construction Management, Quantity Surveying, Occupational Health and Safety. But do you know what is happening there? Each time we offer these, we have a large male population, that's true, but more and more females are now registering for them too. And what is even more, the top student in each of these courses over the last 3 years has been a woman. So last year, we began working at the grassroots level, and that is where SMA came in. And so I'm proud to say that SMA was a pioneer project. We are getting into schools and hosting workshops where we speak to the young men directly. And we use the man-to-man program as a means of not only dialogue, but a demonstration of the benefits of actively pursuing tertiary education. this academic year, we have 2 young men who have joined us at the Global Campus directly from secondary school, and they both are from SMA. Yes, that's something to be proud of. So we applaud these 2 young men who came to us directly from Form 5 for the bold step that they have taken, and we will continue to follow their success very closely. UWI will continue to do its part as far as working with various stakeholders as we seek to move the education agenda forward. We thank the SMA Alumni Association for asking us to come on board for this particular venture, and we look forward to working with the SMA Alumni Association long into the future. One way that I can suggest is for a fund that will assist St. Mary's boys, like the 2 students who began this semester with us, with their tuition fees at UWI. Of course, we know that when students do not have to add the stress about how they will cover the cost of their education to their already full load that they carry, they are more likely to remain in their programs and complete successfully. We have an excellent group on tonight's panel, and I'm eager to hear their perspectives, not only on the male to female ratios as I have discussed here, but on the various aspects and issues about education in Dominica. I congratulate the class of 1974, 1975, all of the other SMA alumni, and the school on staging its reunion activities. I wish us every success for tonight and for all the other activities this week. Again, welcome to UWI Global Campus, Dominica. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kimon Joseph. And we've come to the main course on the menu, and this evening's menu, and that is the panel discussion. But the person who is in a position to give you, all of the information you need to know about that discussion before it actually begins is here with us, and is Mr. Michael Augustine, who is a former teacher of the St. Mary's Academy, and he'll be the moderator for this evening's panel discussion. Michael.
Good evening, everyone. I am not an old boy, as you can tell. No. I mean, look at me. I'm not an old boy, because you notice that team stressed on old boy. I'm certainly not an old boy. But I wondered why Sobers gave me the most difficult task. He brought me in on this exercise, and he simply gave me the ideas and said, Michael, you have to come up with the questions. And I thought that was the most difficult. I would have loved to have been the MC, like Tim, but Sober said, no, that's your job. Okay? So since we are late, I'm going to just ask that the panelists join us on the table. Dr. Swinburne Augustine. We have Dr. Francis Sevre online. Dr. Edmund Tavernier. Dr. Rosalind Larocque, who is joining us online. And my troublesome student, I remember, Mr. Michelle Williams. Yeah. Okay. Again, good evening. We are here to discuss nothing less than the future of our nation, the future of education in Dominica. Our world is changing rapidly, from climate realities to digital frontiers. Our task is to explore how our classroom must evolve in response. The goal of this panel is not just to talk, but to ignite ideas into action. So let's begin. We fed our panelists with the questions beforehand, so they are pretty much aware of what I'm going to throw at them. Okay? So we will begin with question 1. I'll read it to Edmund, Dr. Tavernier. And we are focusing on this question in terms of our foundation and our identity. So in the face of globalized curricula and digital content, how can we ensure the future Dominican education system strengthens rather than dilutes our unique cultural identity, Creole language, and connections to our indigenous language and culture? Tavernier. You can remain right, yes.
Hi, good evening, and thank you very much for the introduction. As I listened to Dr. Joseph talking about the ratio of men to women at school, I recall having to deal with the same thing at Rutgers University. Particularly having to try to entice black men to enroll in so it's a challenge. But in the interest of time, let's move on. While the direct question deals with culture, because of the nature of the topic, I'm just going to give some broad outlines of the education system within which this cultural aspect should be examined. Now, if you've been paying any attention to the news, you would be hearing quite a bit about education. On September the 10th, the Minister of Education, Honorable Octavia Alfred, indicated that the 25-26 academic year was off to a wonderful start, a very successful start. The minister indicated that there were about 4,000 secondary school students enrolled for the 25-26 academic year, and about 5,000 primary school students enrolled. So if you examine the total, then you would have about 5,000 students graduating every year, and then the question is, what do they do with the time and talent? So that's always a challenge. Also, on September 25th, 26, we had the 10th conference of the Ministers of Education at the State House. And at that conference, the Prime Minister Skerritt indicated that the education system should undergo a paradigm shift. And the Prime Minister indicated, and I quote, I need to quote him properly, he said, the society will reap what we sow in the education system if we don't engage in that shift that he's talking about. Now, when he said reap what we sow, I am convinced that he wasn't talking about it in a very salutary manner. I don't think he meant anything well or good when he said that. So the question is the future of education in jeopardy? Are things that dire? So let's look just briefly at what's going on, what has gone on for the 19th, 20th, and 21st century. Of course, the 21st century would be aspirational. It's still evolving. So in the 19th century, we had, for example, the technological innovation was electricity and the telephone. The 20th century, of course, was the internet. And of course, the 21st century is still evolving. We have cyber physical security, social media, AI, robotics, and so on and so forth. The main industry then, oil, of course, agriculture was in infancy and so on. We had mass production machines and the like. In terms of the 21st century, of course, we have social media, internet, big data, and so on going on. As far as the curriculum was concerned, in the 19th century, we prepared folks mainly for the labor market. And then it evolved in the 20th century to where we tried to prepare for some independence. And going back, of course, to the 19th century, I think we carried the 19th and the 20th for a very long time with the writing, reading, and arithmetic. You know, those were the main things. And then in the 20th century, we started looking at other items like visual arts and so on, creative writing, those kinds of things. The 21st century education curriculum is one that is more flexible, where we try to see how well we can personalize education in terms of the students. Now, think of what we are asking the education system to do. We're asking the education system to train or to prepare students for technologies that have not yet been invented, for positions that have not yet been created, for conflicts that have not yet arrived. To do so requires quite a bit of skill and teaching. The question then is the education system up to the challenge? Luckily for us, we don't have to go very far to look for some of the answers. We can look to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, and their Future of Education and Skills Project 2030 to try to get some of the answers. The project aims to challenge or ask two questions. What knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values will today's students need to thrive and shape the world? The first question. The second, how can instructional systems develop these knowledge, skills, skills, attitudes, and values effectively? Now, these questions clearly are questions that the education system should be able to answer. Of course, there may be limitations, given resources, but there are several panelists on tonight's discussion, so I'm not going to dwell too much on any one education facet. I wanted to say that education, because of the vital role that it plays in developing knowledge, skills, and attitudes and values, enable people to contribute, to benefit from, and we have to try to ensure that it does so in an inclusive and sustainable manner. We all now these days are very concerned about the environment and so on. So what are some of the changes then that should be made to the curricula to ensure that we have a functioning education system that is relevant for the future? So here are some suggestions put out by the OECD report. Student agency. Now, hopefully we could discuss about that a little later, but let's just look at it for now. The curriculum should be student-centered and strive to incorporate students' prior knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values as a means of motivating students. In everything that we do, motivation is always the key. And as I listened to Dr. Severus speak earlier on this asynchronous and synchronous instruction, I teach a lot of classes remotely, and they're asynchronous in nature. And one of the first things I always tell the students is I say, look, this is an online class, yes, but you have to be very disciplined and very motivated to do well in this class, because essentially I'm just facilitating your education. All right, this is my role as the facilitator. And so it is not a very, they think it's easy, and very often at the end of the semester I would ask them for some of the challenges of what they enjoyed, and they would say things, well, I wish it were an in-class thing. Of course, they knew it was going to be online, but they say, I wish it were an in-class exercise. All right, so student agents, they have to be very, very involved and motivated to do well. Rigor. So the topics should be challenging and facilitate deep thinking and reflection. Of course, tonight I think there's some topics on critical thinking, so we'll just skip over that for now. Some focus. A relatively small number of topics should be introduced in each grade to ensure the depth and quality of student learning. Topics may overlap to reinforce key concepts. Coherence. Topics should be sequenced to reflect the logic of the academic discipline or disciplines of which they draw, enabling progression from one easy topic to a more advanced topic. And even at the university level, we have, although there is a sequence of courses you're supposed to take, some students want to skip over the sequence, and then they come to you and say, well, I don't understand this. I say, well, obviously you're not going to understand it because you were not prepared because of the sequence you didn't follow. So that's very important. Alignment. The curriculum should be well aligned with teaching and assessment practices.
Okay, Dr. Tavernier.
Yes.
Maybe this is a good opportunity so we could segue into a discussion on curriculum relevance.
Are you sure you want to get on that?
Yes, and I want to remind the panelists that I thought I maybe didn't have to, but the ground rules are you have only 10 minutes. but five would be for your contribution, and then the other 5, yes, could be to get the other panelists involved in your particular question. But maybe we could segue into Dr. Swinburne Augustine on curriculum relevance. Given Dominica's vulnerability to climate change and its goal of becoming the world's first climate resilient nation, we heard quite a bit about that after Hurricane Maria and so on. Dr. Augustine, what specific practical skills and knowledge from advanced agriculture to disaster management should be embedded into the core curriculum from primary school onward? How do we in particular begin to focus more purposefully and intentionally on science, technology, engineering, the arts, sports, culture, and mathematics, STEAM, grounded in the knowledge that a new paradigm for the transformation of our education sector and society is a crucial imperative? Dr. Augustine.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to be here. It is quite a pleasure to see Brother Jermaine after more than 40 years. And to see my old boss at DBS, Mr. Tim Duran. Thank you. So, to achieve Dominica's goal of becoming the world's first climate resilient nation, and I will try to stick to 5 minutes, embedding specific practical skills and knowledge into the core curriculum from primary school onward is crucial, as we just heard. We need some here are some key areas that we can focus on. Practical skills, advanced agriculture. By that I mean sustainable farming practices such as permaculture and agroforestry. What is permaculture? It is the development of agri-ecosystems intended to be sustainable, but more importantly, self-sufficient. If you teach a man to fish, he'll have enough fish to feed his family and others. So these are some of the agroforestry, climate resilient crop management and soil conservation, irrigation management and water harvesting techniques. All those have to be built into the curriculum. Disaster management, understanding natural hazards such as hurricanes and floods, which we are so prone to in the Caribbean, disaster risk reduction and emergency preparedness, and response and recovery strategies. Renewable energy and sustainability, solar, wind energy systems, efficiency, energy efficiency and conservation, and sustainable building practices and green architecture. Water management. We have a lot of water in Dominica. 365 rivers we like to boast about. How do we conserve that? Not just for now, but for generations to come to enjoy and to continue to say that we have 365 and maybe 366. Watershed management and protection. I just retired from the United States Environmental Protection Agency, where all we do is to study the air, the water, and the land that we live on. That's our only mission, to protect human health and the environment. So it is really, we have developed so many models, tools that are free and available. I know where the databases are, we are using them, and I can guide you to those. We do not need to reinvent the wheel. We spent a lot of the US GDP on that research. It may be going through hell now, but it's you know what I mean. Water treatment and sanitation, not just in Roseau area, but throughout the country, in the rural areas. Delis, Boetica, all of them. Those soucis we have, they're good, but they have a lot of stuff in there. So we had to study them and make sure that we're not putting things that is going to stress the healthcare system later on. Environmental conservation, ecosystem management, and biodiversity conservation, or crapo, or crabs, or everything, or maniculi. We have to preserve those things and not allow them to disappear. Sustainable forest management. We've seen in many places they're becoming literal deserts. We're building and we're cutting everything down. Planting that little tree in that neighborhood ain't gonna do nothing. You'll eventually turn it into a desert, so we have to be careful of our beautiful island that we all love. Climate change and mitigation strategies and adaptation strategies. Now for STEAM education, I'll go quickly through that. Science, integrate climate change, sustainability, and environmental science into the curriculum. We are doing that at Wilberforce University, where I'm a professor of biology now. I just taught last night from a room in Copthall. Technology. A lot of us are afraid of those things. Incorporate coding, app development, and digital tools to analyze and address climate-related issues. I am the Chief Science Officer of a health metrics artificial intelligence company on the cutting edge of predictive health and personalized medicine using non-invasive techniques that I developed, using your saliva and your sweat and your breath. So you don't have to worry about a needle in a hospital. And we want to get you before you get to the hospital. So we're going to disrupt the healthcare industry that wants you to get sick. We want you to be well, not sick. We want a well care, not a health care, if it's health care. Well care. Engineering. Encourage students to design and develop innovative solutions for climate resilience, such as green infrastructure and sustainable buildings. So we have to let them go, let them fly. This is their era. Our era were cassettes and CD and DVD. Theirs is artificial intelligence and flying cars. It is coming. Right? Yes. So arts, sports, and culture integrate creative expression and cultural heritage into climate change education, promoting awareness, advocacy, and community engagement. You get people, reach them where they are. Mathematics. A lot of people are afraid of mathematics, but it's simple logic. 1 + 1 will always be 2. The thing that you don't know is always difficult at first. I don't care what it is, whether it's a guitar or whether it's sports, it doesn't matter. It is continued practice that makes you an expert. So as you continue to study and read and learn and associate yourself, most importantly, with people who have a vision of the future and not people who keep looking backwards, you will succeed. And so the key principles: an interdisciplinary approach. Integrate those STEAM subjects to provide a holistic understanding of climate change and sustainability. Hands-on learning. What I have found is I can teach all these complex biological concepts, but when I bring them in the lab, it becomes real to them. When a student touches something, they will remember it. Community involvement. These people in dailies don't know those big words you're using. Use simple language. One teacher told me, the best teacher is the one who can take the most complex thought and make the most common person understand it. That is brilliance. Incorporate them. You can't just do things and throw it on them. These people are proud, right? They're very proud, and a lot of them didn't go to high school, not because they failed an exam, but especially when Brother Jermaine was my principal, there were just a few high schools in the country, and a lot of them couldn't make the cut. So there are a lot of smart people here. Treat them that way and involve them. They have great ideas. They've been touching that land forever. Cultural relevance. Incorporate our local culture and traditions into that. When you do that, what you're doing, you're actually adding value, things that will make them want to do it because of the culture that they love. Our clothes, yeah, we're proud about our country. And continuous professional development. All these teachers teaching the same subjects all day long. It becomes boring. Where those textbooks are, is about 10 years behind where the research is. The things that the medical doctors are doing now, we're 10 years ahead. They'll catch up at some point. So by embedding these practical skills and knowledge areas into the core curriculum, Dominica can equip its students with the skills and competencies needed to address challenges of climate change and build a resilient future.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Augustine. Dr. LaRocque, I'm pretty sure you would agree for the curriculum to remain relevant, and you just mentioned boring teachers and the like, that teacher transformation is imperative. So, Dr. LaRocque, the role of the teacher is shifting from instructor to facilitator and guide. What does effective professional development look like for our educators to make this transition? And how do we support them in integrating new pedagogies and technologies without increasing teacher burnout? Dr. LaRocque. She's online. Yes.
Education systems operate as they are designed. So if we want real change, we must look beyond just teacher training and professional learning changing just that. We have to strengthen the system that will support all the things that we talked about so far that we would like to do. Sustainable change requires a comprehensive, systemic approach. For me, our journey begins with three fundamental questions. What is the purpose of education writ large? What does education transformation mean for Dominicans specifically? And the third question is, what are the interests of our students? Because many times we bake a cake that no one wants. We should bake. The answers to those questions will shape our professional development content, our curriculum, our lesson planning, and even the way we evaluate educators and the system. Innovation works best when the system isn't overloaded. So the very first thing we have to do is to facilitate educators so that they can pivot to embrace change and adapt to all the new things that we're talking about. How do we do that? The way to help them facilitate that change, they have to learn how to facilitate the change for themselves, and therefore we have to teach them change management. It's not going to work just because we add all these new things on. There is a process. How do we handle change management? We begin to help them look at the polarities in the system. What is it we're doing? Are we doing social emotional learning, or are we doing content learning? Are we doing AI, or are we going back to the rote and testing? What are we willing to give up? What are we willing to modify? How are we going to embrace this change and make it very clear that there will be pros and cons to all the new initiatives, and how do we measure progress? Now you may say that's not professional development. It is. Because when educators understand this, then they are better poised to embrace the change and redesign their instructional strategies and how they teach. We need hands-on training for the teachers, experiential PD. Don't know if we've moved away from lectures. Lectures are necessary just to get the basic information, but the information only becomes relevant when we do hands-on. So what does that mean? We need to have them engage with the tools. We have to expose them to it. We have to teach them how to reflect on what they're doing and ask questions. It's no longer just having a trainer at the front delivering their best lecture. We have to teach people how to collaborate. That's a word that's lacking in education, because we're still into the I. Even if we're talking about all of this technology, the world is moving to collaboration. It's no longer the Lone Ranger series. And we have to help them, therefore, contribute to curriculum development. We cannot, in Dominica, transform and buy a curriculum somewhere and impose it in our climate as we've done before. We need to embrace the community. Yes, businesses. Maybe seniors go out in the summer for a week where they do a apprenticeship on something and get a grade for it. Or maybe, like the last speaker talked about, forest management. They do something called like a mini Gusto where they spend a week learning about this, because we can't overload the system. Maybe that's not something that can be infused at this time, but we can generate interest for all those things that the young boys don't seem to be interested in. Maybe here are some things they can learn in the summer that can spark enough interest, so when it's introduced in the curriculum, you've got an audience. Collaboration is vital. There's a method of PD now that we call collaboration and inquiry. And it's where teachers spend time and share their plans with others, learn how to analyze the data from their classes, do lesson walkthroughs where one teacher may stand up and present the lesson that she's going to do within a week, get feedback from her peers, and the peers, through something called instructional rounds, can go into the classroom and observe, just how you observe doctors, doctors do that all the time, and give feedback. And that way you're building collective skills and fostering ongoing learning. If the adults in the building demonstrate collaboration,
then the kids will do collaboration, and it won't just be something you do during the science fair where you say work on a project, like an afterthought. We want to have time. That's going to be the main thing. Scheduling and time. Here's a thought. Robin Fogarty from Chicago talked about 6 ways to integrate the curriculum. Because I hope we're not talking about taking each of these strands and making them courses by themselves. It's like teaching critical thinking in all 6 classes, but they don't learn it at the same time. So what she said is there are themes, there's other ways to integrate, but the one that interested me most was using critical thinking as the base. And that way you don't have to lose any part or give up any part of your content. But what it would mean is that you have teams: science, math, social studies, language arts. If you're doing deductive reasoning, the question is, okay, for the next 2 weeks, deductive reasoning is featured in every class, not one class at a time whenever the curriculum dictates. So these educators also become curriculum writers in a way where the learning is more cohesive and it's not come to aisle 5 because that's my class. You walk out learning that things mesh. I learned to write a good essay in history because I need to know my history, but writing is also important. Here's another thought. Can the history teacher and the language arts teacher come together where the one essay the child writes becomes graded for history from a historical perspective, and the language arts teacher grades the same essay from a language arts perspective? You get 2 grades for the same essay, less is more, and you're more inclined to give it your effort than to try to run the mill of every teacher asks me to write an essay, so I've got to get it done. Scheduling is important, but we should make sure that we do job-embedded training as well for the educators. Lots of collaboration, job-embedded training on the spot. After work hours, yes, that's a union issue maybe. That's something you need to work out. But whatever you do, you cannot limit the educator's agency. There will always be resistance. And here's how we can address that. There is always things people like, and somebody might say, oh, the AI is taking my job, or they're going to write the essays for the kids. You can manage that. But you introduce to educators how AI, for example, can take on those administrative tasks that you free up more time for you. For example, email. Tell it what you want and then check and make sure that it got it right, because sometimes you have no idea what it's saying. What about attendance? You know, that long time where we stand there calling 30 names waiting to hear here and present? What about assignments? Turning in what if we could use the Google folder and drop the assignment? And I'm talking about starting really small before we blossom to greater things. What about just dropping the assignment in? What about using Google to do peer reviews where people write papers as a team and they give each other feedback? Feedback is an amazing tool for learning. There is so much more, but collaboration is going to be vital. Embracing the community where the kids can do apprenticeships and learn, or they can go to workshops, or like on forest management to get the interest. It is about continuous improvement. And we cannot just say, let's just change PD without changing the entire system that we're supporting.
Thank you very much, Dr. Larrock. I've always lamented as a secondary school teacher that the burden of wanting our students to write and speak well always fell on the back of the language arts teacher. And the bio and the history teacher, they ignored whether the student wrote or spoke well. So I kind of liked that, that you brought up. But with all of that comes cost, we can say. So, Mr. Williams, let's look at the economic alignment of teacher transformation. how can we better align our secondary and tertiary education offerings in the TVET system, Dominica State College, and tertiary education with the future economic drivers of the island's economy, such as the orange economy, greening the economy, the blue economy, ecotourism, professional services and business management, manufacturing, and agro-processing.
All right. Thank you, Sir Augustine. You said that I was troublesome, and I was hoping to continue in that stead this evening, but you put my two principals in the front row, so I'll try to behave. I think the answer to that question, and I'm not an educator, but I am an industry practitioner and an employer in multiple areas and in islands now, so I'm going to be very blunt. From the Dominica context, it really depends on whether our national policy is still to export our best and brightest. If that is our national policy, then we're educating people for other countries, and we're doing very well. If we are going to look at education for the economic drivers that we're espousing on a national level, which is the orange economy, the blue economy, ecotourism, and IT industry, we do have to rethink how we're educating the students for that locally. I mean, we have natural talent, particularly if you look at the orange economy. We have guys coming up with world-class rhythms from their bedroom overnight in this island with no formal training in engineering, sound engineering. And they're delivering on that. But there is no formal way for them to certify themselves in the natural talent skill that they have gotten from practice, because it's not offered, right? And so to really align those things, we have to start with looking at what is the national assessment? What does the industry need from a skills perspective? And then how do we now align our education to fit that skill? Because Dominica's always produced educated people. I mean, there's more knowledge in this room in the last 20, 30, 40 years than anywhere else that we have. But to make people employable, and to go to Dr. Simone's point, why we're seeing the boys drift, it is because the education is really centered into mostly academics. We have more lawyers per square foot than anywhere. We have a lot of doctors. None of them are here, but we have a lot of doctors. And so the things that are really required, and that was very evident after Hurricane Maria when we couldn't find plumbers and joiners and carpenters and so on because we just didn't have them, right? And so it was good, and I think SMA still has the polytechnical part of it, which is the industrial arts and the agricultural science, practicals. But that is not a formal thing. You see school systems in Barbados that have fully polytechnical high schools where they educate for the hands-on, mechanics. I mean, we have 3 to 6 months in this country if you can get your vehicle fixed, because you have 2 or 3 qualified mechanics that can work on it for an entire country. And they don't have the time to pass that skills on. So there has to be a needs assessment as to what it is that we need locally. And then we have to review and revise the curriculums to meet the domestic needs while still in keeping with the synergies of the regional institutions and the fancy things and so on. One of the challenges that we have is that we are seeing AI as a way to knock. We don't want students to use AI to do their homework and so on and so forth. But the AI replaces the research. I think if education, one of the things we see in industry is that people come with excellent grades, but they cannot think. And in an age of polycrisis, you have to be able to unlearn, relearn, rethink, problem solve, and reimagine for you to be useful in the new environment moving forward. It isn't about how many alphabets you have behind your name anymore. It is how do you apply those alphabets to the changing circumstances in this world, particularly from climate crises, multiple wars, geopolitical changes and upheaval. Up to 5 years ago, everybody wanted to go to the US to study. Now the US doesn't want anybody. And we have to rethink that. We have to do industry partnerships in terms of liaising and linking with partnerships with established businesses. We have invested heavily in geothermal. We are looking at ecotourism has been the mantra for a very long time here. We have big developments in hotel chains, but we do not have a service school or a service industry. Other countries do. Antigua, St. Lucia have. We have to be able to create those sort of partnerships so we can bring those skills across to our people domestically to meet the industry that is present now and that is coming, right? We have to focus on applied learning, an emphasis on hands-on, project-based learning that simulates real-world work scenarios and equips students with practical skills and problem-solving abilities. One of the biggest challenges we have is that a lot of the bright people that we have with excellent grades, if things move 2 degrees from center, they become lost because they don't, there was a time in CIFO called Sister Josie taught us this course called Critical Thinking. And I still have that as the best course that I've ever done in my life because it taught me how to think, right? Because right now, AI is going to provide the research for you in 2 to 3 seconds or more by assimilating thousands of data online. The question is, when you have that information in your hand, what are you going to do with it and how do you use it to do it? And that's what we need to be focusing on right now. We also have to look at technology integration into the curriculum to enhance learning and prepare students for digital workspaces. And that happened during COVID. Everybody trying to get people to go back in the office now. But I think cloud workspaces are here to stay. In my firm, we do fractional executive offerings, so you can have a financial controller, but you don't really have to get the person to sit down in your office. They basically do the work online, and they do it for multiple businesses, and we're only able to do that because we do it on a cloud. So no longer do you need brick and mortar to do some of the critical functions. You have a lot of people working from their home, offering top-notch service at a fraction of what it would take to recruit, fly, house, employ, and gratuity somebody to do that. Those things are going out the door. And we have to create a culture in school of lifelong learning. There's a lot of people that get to their tertiary education and their degrees and they turn the off switch. I know UE is leading the park in continuing professional development on the national level, and that is excellent because we do have people that have been qualified for a very long time. I'm getting into that age bracket there too. And the things that they have learned are no longer relevant to the changing times. They're not able to use the new tools, the new Excels, the new big data analysis tools that come in, not because they're not bright or they're not supposed to do it. It's just, it's another time. One of the things that UE is doing very well that I think is going to be critical is to deliver micro-credentials or modularization of certain things. So offer shorter, more focused credentials or modular courses that allow students to specialize in specific areas of interest and acquire niche skills quickly. That augments their employability very, very quickly. And if you're going to do a distance education and you're going to have to go through the same 3 or 4 years to do that and you're working, you are technically retarded in your current position of entry until you actually attain that degree. If you're able to do modular courses and micro-credentials in between, you can see your income now move on a curve together with your experience and your knowledge. And we have to start incorporating that and getting that mindset at the secondary level so that the students know that they can go into that funnel and path.
Mr. Williams, thanks a lot. And I'm pretty sure Dr. Sevre smiled at that last comment you made. Ryui. So, Dr. Sevre, the future of education extends far beyond the schoolyard. I'm pretty sure most of you would agree with that. So how do we break down the walls between schools and communities to create a culture of lifelong learning? Mr. Williams just mentioned lifelong learning. And actively engage parents, elders, local businesses, he's a businessman, and partners, or as partners, sorry, in the education process. Dr. Severin.
Good night, everyone. I notice, moderator, you have skipped 6 and gone on to 8. Is that the intention?
That is intentional. I listened to his comment, as I said.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. I just want you to know that even at this time of night, I'm alert. So, yes. But I just wanted to make some preliminary statements. And I want to thank fellow panelists for the interventions earlier. I think everything fits together. But there is a point...
If I may,
yes.
You know, feel free to segue into number 6.
Yes.
Yes.
Certainly.
Sure,
Everything, I suppose, is inextricably bound.
Right, yes.
There is a point that Dr. Larrock made, and I think it is pertinent for tonight. And she did speak about overloading the system. And respectfully, moderator, your questions are excellent. But I want to put it to you, and I want to give you the challenge that we have perhaps overloaded the system tonight. Because if you had a classroom situation here, our students would leave with a lot of knowledge, but very disoriented. Because each one of those wonderful questions could have made a distinguished lecture. Be that as it may, let me sort of paraphrase what I want to say with a few ruminations. You have heard the saying, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I want to vary that a bit to say that culture eats technology for breakfast. Because culture, which is a design for living, is in fact the core, the scaffolding on which everything is built. And I suppose my area or my proclivity, my bias is sociology and the humanities. And therefore, I am a bit uncomfortable, and it is problematic for me when we tend to privilege and get excited and in fact kneel at the altar of AI and technology, when in fact we should be doing as Dr. Rosalind Larrock has said, we should be fixing the system. And so if we do not ensure that the system itself is in order, the AIs and the technologies and everything that we put over it would just be, and you may have heard the allegory or the metaphor by Jesus himself, putting wine in old skins. And this is not what we want to do, okay? We have to treat teachers as agents. We have to understand that it's a mindset change, almost a cataclysmic change that we require. Because if we do not change those basic, fundamental, and rudimentary matters, then we'll be spinning top in mud, but we will forever be drawers of water and hewers of wood. So in terms of the question 8 per se, I think the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 4 is the place to start. And what does it say? Quality education, provide inclusive, equitable, and quality education for all, fostering lifelong learning opportunities and bridging the global education gap. And it means that we have to break down the walls. We have to go beyond the academy. We have to go beyond the school. We have to involve the community. Now, educators, Ministry of Education officials, the government, and other stakeholders must first have a shared vision in all of this. It cannot be directed from above. It cannot be directed from the political directorate. They give the guidance. But there has to be inclusion in terms of that shared vision. Because the name shared inheres in the concept. And if it comes from one angle or the other that is politically directed, then it is not shared at all. Education is a shared responsibility. So in terms of that culture of lifelong learning, I think firstly, communication of what lifelong learning means and what a culture of lifelong learning is would be fundamental. We have to use programs on radio, television, YouTube, and all the contemporary media to promote lifelong learning. And let me answer the question with questions. Do we acknowledge the benefits of lifelong learning? You heard the previous speaker. I'm not too sure whether you have arranged brothers-in-law speaking contiguously, but be that as it may. Do we acknowledge the benefits of lifelong learning? Do we emphasize enough that education is indeed the passport to the future? Do we emphasize how communities will benefit collectively? Do we promote that learning promotes quality of life at all ages? Do we have a cutoff point where we say, at this age, education stops? Again, the term continuing education, with the accent and the emphasis on continuing, is very important. I may even ask the question, are we afraid of educating people? And that's the culture that I speak about. What about the vulnerable groups in our community? If we target these groups by breaking down the walls, going outside of the school compound, the school boundaries, for instance, this shift will and can help to reduce poverty, discrimination, and inequality. You heard Dr. Joseph speak about the two young men who have come directly from high school to the university. That is a good model, but how are we going to support them in that regard? So it is not only the responsibility of governments. The NGOs have to be part of that shared vision. Private sector, communities, and government. We must engage the parents, elderlies, or the elders of our society, the local businesses as partners, involving parents, for instance, in school activities and projects. For example, a teacher could bring in a guest speaker, and we're talking about simple matters, as Dr. Larrock says. We start from small, one cocoa full the basket, okay? A teacher invites or brings in a guest speaker from the community to interact with the students. What about that? And share issues facing the community. In that way, the theoretical aspects are made live and real so that the theory can be applied to the real problems in the society that community person, community elder, for instance, would espouse in the classroom. So this gives real life experiences, okay? And of course, the person coming to speak must not be anxious about anything. They must not be concerned about speaking of a matter or an issue in the community that affects them. If there is that, then that constraint on free speech is also problematic. Allow the public to visit the school to see exhibitions of students' work. I am not au fait with what's happening today in the high schools per se, but I'm not too sure how often we have what we used to have when growing up, exhibitions, okay? Host lectures, workshops on topics relevant to social issues. Ask elders to volunteer in school to serve as mentors. But your culture has to allow that. Your culture has to be one that does not dump and chuck away old people, what we call old people, which in itself has a stigma, but it has to embrace. And when you do that, the depth of knowledge community knowledge that can emanate. Ask business leaders or parents or former students to share their expertise by organizing and sponsoring evening classes for adults. Utilize social media to keep everyone informed of school events and activities. Collaborate with local businesses to provide students with real-world learning experiences. Host regular parent-teacher conferences so that your teachers and your parents speak. And not only the parents of the good students, quote-unquote good students, because you know who comes to PTA meetings, the parents who really are part of the choir, and then those whose children may be problematic are away. How do you seek out those parents and bring them in? Plan field trips on which students and parents will attend, you know? And I think it all comes back to the old African proverb. It takes a child, it takes a village to raise a child, okay? So it has to be an all hands on deck. Schools, family, community groups, and businesses must work together. We must understand and recognize, according to UNESCO, the holistic character of lifelong learning. We must promote transdisciplinary research and intersectoral collaboration. We must place vulnerable groups at the core of lifelong learning. We must establish lifelong learning as a common good. And that is why I emphasize that the culture is very important. And in terms of the system, to superimpose all of this on the system without repairing the system would be, as I said, spinning top in mud. We have to understand that it's not only the theoretical aspects, but the emotional intelligence, the social problem-solving skills, and so on. All of these have to be addressed in order to arrive at this culture that will support and embrace the lifelong learning. As I said, moderator, there's a lot that you have packed in tonight.
Yes.
There's a lot that can be said, but we are limited by time, really.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you to move into number 6, which you just intimated a while ago, just a short bit. But it is not deliberate to put the brothers-in-law back to back, no. But I'm going to continue in that vein, though. And I'm going to call Michelle again. Because within the OECS and CARICOM, there are frameworks. You know, just a couple of days ago, I heard, radio host Matt Peltier with, I think it was Dr. Jean-Jacques and someone else, promoting the idea of free movement between the OECS territories. So within the OECS and CARICOM, there are frameworks of educational integration, UE, Dr. Severa, the Caribbean Examination Council. So how can Dominica more actively, Mr. Williams, leverage regional partnerships to share resources, offer specialized in-person and online courses, create more opportunities for student and teacher exchange? Dr. Severa hinted, inviting guest speakers, community leaders into classrooms, or sharing best practices without losing sovereign control over our educational priorities and development objectives. And before Mr. Williams continue, let me just remind everyone that our esteemed panel, everyone, are SMA old boys. Okay? So let's just continue to... And teacher.
All right.
Dr. Larrock, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
For Dominica to more actively leverage regional partnerships within the OECS and CARICOM, it has to do so by adopting a strategic, multifaceted approach that aligns the national educational priorities while maximizing the regional benefits. And let me just put on the table some key strategies. Dominica needs to actively participate in existing frameworks like UWI, CXC, OECS educational committees to influence regional policy and resource allocations in line with its own domestic national agenda. It has to establish cross-country digital collaboration hubs for its educators, its students, its administrators to share best practices and develop joint projects. It should collaborate with regional institutions to develop and deliver specialized in-person and online courses tailored to Dominica's needs, utilizing regional expertise and resources. Set up regional centers of excellence in fields like sustainable agriculture, tourism, or renewable energy, leveraging shared resources and facilities. Dominica set itself up to be the lead, certainly in geothermal in the Caribbean, it being the first resilient country. There has to be ways that it can use those national priorities and leverage some of the benefits of the regional institution and resources that it can get from a CARICOM and from a University of the West Indies avenue to it. Facilitate teachers and student exchanges. Implement reciprocal exchange programs with neighboring countries focusing on cultural, academic, and professional development while preserving national educational standards. Use regional scholarships and funding initiatives to support exchange opportunities, increasing accessibilities. I heard some talk about how do we support people. That doesn't necessarily have to be only within the Dominica context. That can be expanded out. Maybe another island has that opportunity or that set up already, and we have to find ways to tap into that or to copy and paste it. Right? There's nothing wrong with that. And that goes into developing joint resource pools for shared access in terms of technology, infrastructure, teaching materials, and research. But we have to maintain our sovereignty and the alignment with national objectives. I'm very passionate about all the fancy things that we want to get into, but how is it applicable for the national agenda currently, short term, and forward? Yes, robotics is good. Yes, AI is good. And we need to learn those things. But we have to get to the point where, we can recover from a natural disaster with domestic talent without having to import it significantly before we can deal with putting a robots factory in Maho, right? So we have to get there and align those things with the national strategy while still getting our students up to that level. Now, we have to advocate for flexible regional frameworks as well too. We have gone very far and done very well with the CXCs and the whole regional sit-in one exam for everybody at one time in the year. But we have to understand that different countries are at different levels of their development, and so. Maybe Michael can speak to that because he's on CXC. It must be quite challenging trying to structure an exam and teaching everybody from different backgrounds and different stages to sit one generalized exam for an entire Caribbean. And then when you pass that at that level, how applicable is it for your national circumstance, which is where you live? And now that we're going into this age of cross-border freedom of movement and so on, I go back to my original question. Are we training our people to export them, or are we training our people to move our own national agenda? Because with the freedom of people are not going to come to a country where the agenda is not clearly set out for them with the level of education that they have, particularly when the domestically educated people are still moving. And so we may find ourselves to just be a factory of producing bright minds, but our own national agenda is not reaping the benefits of the regional organizations that we are part of. And that is worrying from a country perspective.
Okay, thank you. But, you know, you kind of put me on the spot there with CXC. Yeah, I've been an examiner with CXC for more than 25 years, I think. But I guess you're worried about having this one menu, and it doesn't matter whether who eats chicken, who eats pork, we feed one menu to everyone. So maybe Dr. Larrock can probably maybe give us a little insight into maybe an assessment revolution. So if we are truly moving towards a system that values critical thinking, creativity and problem solving over rote memorization, how must our methods of student assessment, our exams, as Michelle mentioned, our grades, etc., fundamentally change to reflect and measure those new competencies that we are trying to forge towards? Dr. Larrock.
Okay, thank you again. So let me start off by saying that the physical design of classrooms directly affects the assessment practices and student engagement. Historically, and I'm sure we're the same way, we sat in rows. I looked at the back of the head of the person sitting in front of me, and on cue, they would turn around because now we would say, discuss. If education is going to prepare us for the real world, this is not how businesses operate. Everybody is working on a team right now. On a team. Everybody has their part, they meet, they report, and then they make changes, and then they go back and do whatever it is they have to do. I say that to say, I will go back to my old song and dance. If we cannot get kids to collaborate, if we cannot get kids to work in teams, if we cannot get kids to review the work of their peers, we are wasting our time. If the final exam cannot be a project, something generated by the student where they take the knowledge and do something new, it's called the transfer of knowledge. And all the rote assessments is done during the school year, what exactly are we doing? Because I want you to take what I teach you. For example, in my book, and I didn't want to bring my book up, one of the assessments we did is at the very beginning of the year, and that was for 10th graders. We did a survey and we asked the kids, where do you see yourself in the next 10 years? And whatever they answered, we took that and we molded the content to those professions that the kids said they were interested in. So the kid, for example, who said, I want to be an editor at a newspaper, his final project was to take the content and write a news release on the content. Because all the testing had already been done during the year. That's what we do. We teach, we test, we move on. So all that content is being learned. Now I need you to produce something at the end. We have to get away from memorization. It's critical in some places as you learn. And by the way, we can use AI to check that. You teach something, give them a multiple choice, make sure they have the basic facts, get AI to check it if you have the machine, the Scantron, and keep it moving. You've just gained time at home where you're not grading a basic paper to see if they got the basic knowledge. We have to change to teamwork. We must go to problem solving as our assessments and have the kid prepare it. And maybe over the radio, the winner talks about that thing they created in science because, or something they wrote on that they saw that was happening in Dominica, a topic that they found interesting that they researched. Because does our present system help kids do research? With all the, they can look for an answer in a second on their phone. Are we using that to help them do real research? And above all, we've got to teach them to understand the validity of what they're reading, because there's a lot of crap out there that's not valid. and kids don't know better. We can differentiate the assessment. Somebody there said, yeah, give everybody the same test and move on. But you can't differentiate if you don't know what their interests are. Incorporate presentations. And one more thing, when we do the class work, allow time for revision and in-depth exploration. Now here's how we can use AI, because the common thing is, oh, they're going to write the essay for the kids. Don't have to. We can use, the traffic lights, red, yellow, green. Red means you're going to write my essay and use absolutely no AI. After your peers have given you some review, we're going to use green. You can use a little bit. Write your paper. And then green means you can use AI as much as you can, but guess what? When you turn that paper in, I want to see the paper you wrote, and I want to see the paper that AI produced. You give me 2 papers. And then we begin to talk about what changes do you see? Do you agree with the changes? Now you're looking at it from that perspective where you don't just take AI as valid, because we know sometimes we ask a question and we're not sure they understood what we asked, right? So that's what we would like to do. Incorporate presentations. Some of them are going to be politicians. They've got to be able to present properly. So incorporate presentations where possible as a form of assessment. We keep saying real world applications. Well, then have them connect local situations with real world situations and make suggestions based on the basic knowledge that you've given them. Here's a sore spot where we're going to need parents to help. Group grades will help because it will foster collaborative work. But I do know that when the group gets a poor grade because someone was slacking, parents will say, well, my kid should have gotten an A because they did their part. Newsflash, you could be in the worst company, but you could be the star of that company. When the company gets a review, nobody cares about your stardom. So we're preparing you for life. It is important that we look at what the workforce demands and modify our assessments to mirror those demands, because after all, we say what? We're preparing you for life. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Larrock. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. While Dr. Larrock was presenting, I just took a glance and I noticed that some of your eyes are beginning to close a bit. So I'm going to engage you. Okay? So what I'm going to do at this juncture, I'm going to invite, the audience, if you'd like to engage any of our panelists. And before I ask the final call to action from all of our esteemed panel. So if there's any contribution you'd like to make, any point you'd like to raise based on a few of the ideas that I raised earlier, from foundational identity, the relevance of the curriculum. I had an idea on the digital divide, but that was captured by Dr. Augustine and Dr. Larrock as well. Teacher transformation came up. Mr. Williams spoke about the economic alignment. We spoke about regional collaboration, parental and community engagement. Dr. Severus spoke on this one. And we just heard about the assessment revolution. So if there's anything you'd like to,
Yep.
Okay.
Good evening, all. First, let me just commend the SMA Reunion Committee for organizing this forum. It's live for DBS, so I guess a lot of people listening. I just want to ask Dr. Sever a question. When he said that you have to fix the system before you... No, what I want to find out is when he said that you should fix the system and not add on all the AI material, I just want his opinion as to how do you manage fixing the system and adding? Do you wait until you fix the system first and then you add on? How do you navigate those two? That's the question I would like to. Yeah, Dr. Sever.
Very good question. Very good question. Now, I think in the dynamics and of life and in the real world, you cannot do it chronologically. You have to do it almost concurrently. So I want you to construe what I said as an alert, as a consciousness that AI and technology, and here is the principle of the global campus, which is the technological campus speaking. Okay, and I'm speaking about that because we understand that our input in the academy, talking about university, is very important in terms of the output that you get. So AI, giving students tablets and that sort of thing, and the technology does not resolve the core. It is perhaps can be construed as Band-Aid. So what about the what you might call the banal and routine matters, the taken for granted matters, as a supportive working environment? Things like the teacher's health, mental health, and wellness, even matters like implementing day of policies for teachers, you know, to allow them to engage in personal pursuits, but also study. Improve working conditions, which is another whole area by itself. Because we all know, and let us not fool ourselves, in a lot of our societies, including Dominica, teachers take their little salaries to buy food, nutrition for students. Those things are still happening, you know, and the salaries have not increased, you know, providing more resources so that they can do the work that they are trained to do and the work that they're employed to do, you know. I spoke about better pay, remuneration, and that kind of thing. Opportunities for teachers to participate in decision-making at the school level. Allowing teachers to select strategies that they're most comfortable with, because they're agents, they're not automatons. They are human beings, okay, and they have ideas. Providing the usual grants and privileging the teachers in that respect, prioritizing them in terms of getting them trained in the same AI that we speak of, in terms of what Dr. Larocque spoke about, because you have to have training in order for you to discern an essay, and you have to know your students too, that is written by your students and one that is written by AI. There's a certain state and you know, lack of creativity that you might see in a certain banal AI writing that if you compare to what a student writes, and if you know that student, you know that is not his or her work, you know. So that those kinds of matters, and I was referencing very briefly the emotional intelligence aspects, you know, for both your teachers and your students, you know, so that, you know, let me share with you a quotation from Shannon Cobran, who's the head of educational training at the SDG Academy. And she says, education must get soft. Education must get soft to better prepare students for work. You know, if your education system does not contain or does not carry those aspects that teaches self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, for both your teachers and your students, problem solving, you know, critical thinking, then I'm saying to you that the AI and the technology would just be an add-on. So the point is that, I think it's Dr. Dublin who asked the question, that culture and the supportive environment must drive the technology. Seek first the kingdom of culture, and the system and all the rest will fall in line.
Thank you,
That
Dr.
is the point.
Sevre. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Yes, please go ahead, sir.
One more or just?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'm Robert Alexander, class of, I think that was the best class of 74.
No, the class of 83 was the best.
Oh, no. That's not what I heard. That's not what I heard. But anyway, my question is for Dr. Agustin. You mentioned different aspects as to how you can, how the community can engage itself through certain aspects of development. But how you think the government financially can support these aspects you were talking about? Thank you.
When it comes to government stuff, I'm out of it. Especially in Dominica. I'm not blue, red, no. But seriously though, I'm just being facetious here. We know that government's role is very important in the direction education goes. We hear a lot of talk, I've been hearing a whole lot tonight about artificial intelligence.
You're a bit soft. I'm not hearing too. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me better?
Yeah. Oh, that's better. Yes,
okay.
Thanks.
So, we hear a lot of it. But whether we like it or not, that's where we're going. What we need to be doing, though, is and the government needs to lead that effort, but they need that expertise to guide them. Infrastructure development, digital infrastructure development, where we need to expand our internet connectivity. The people in Grand Bay, in Girodale, should have reliable internet where they can perform, whether it's studying, without interruptions. Yes, there will be some, but mostly reliable. Public Wi-Fi, established public Wi-Fi hotspots, those that have to be subsidized in community centers, libraries, schools, not just when they're walking by Jolly's pharmacy. It should be all over the place for students and families to use. Digital inclusion initiatives. The government needs to help drive that. Device distribution programs and implement device distribution or loan programs for students from low-income families, ensuring that they have access to those digital tools. Subsidized internet plans. Those are specific things. Smart and specific. S-M-A-R-T. Measurable. You can use those. Subsidized internet plans for those low-income families. Digital literacy training programs. A lot of the people in Dailies, they don't know how to use those phones. They really don't. Okay, yeah, well, I would, because I understand them well. And it's all over. When I say that, it goes all over.
I'm just kidding.
I know. So AI seems to scare people, but if we need to embark on an AI literacy program where people can understand what it means and what it does. Teacher training, provide these educators with professional development opportunities to learn about AI and the emerging technologies that are coming with it. Personalized learning, leverage those AI adaptive learning systems that are already there and are being used in places like Harvard and Yale. While we biting around the edges, they're using it all over the place and creating magic. And ethics, responsibility, we have that, is what I think most people are concerned about. Emphasize the importance of ethics honesty, responsibility, and critical thinking when using it and these emerging technologies. So that's where we're heading, and the government has a big role in pushing it forward. Thank you.
How did you know I was from Granby?
I think he was focusing mainly on Delhi's, you know.
Oh, you mentioned Granby.
Yeah.
How did you knew I was from Granby?
My AI glasses told me. Those AI glasses told me.
Yeah. Mr. Tavernier, I know, I know we're talking about advanced education here. Although, I know Mr. Saverin spoke about, cost and the relevance of education measured against the cost of education, and wanting to do, go to school in the U.S. and that will be way more expensive than doing it locally. But no matter how we skin this cat, cost is a factor, it is a factor. So my question to you is, in your experience and with the networks that you've been involved in the U.S., educational networks, even with your college and everything, are there any opportunities for, maybe just, for example, some cities have sister cities, so LA would be a sister city of, I don't know, maybe Grand Bay or something, you know what I'm saying? But is there any opportunities for this where, there could be opportunities for people, for example, they spoke about whatever it is, twinning, sister city, whatever it is. Sobers always have to correct me. So, but we were talking about the pipeline from high school to college. I mean, that's the natural trend in the U.S. I mean, it's sounding like we have two students who've made the transition, but that's normally that's what happens. You leave high school and you go straight to come in. We have a couple kids who right on the cusp of doing that. So in terms of creating some connections, I mean, what possibilities are there? And
thanks for this question. Actually, when Dr. Severin was talking, that did cross my mind. Whether we like it or not, there is still a cachet to U.S. education. That goes without saying. And so while he was talking, I was saying, I was thinking, maybe we should talk at some point and see if there is a way where we can utilize certain courses, for example, from Rutgers University and UWI, and have students having a joint degree, a Rutgers UWI degree, which I think might have more cachet than just perhaps a UWI degree. I don't know. Again, these are things one could explore. So that is a very relevant question and a very great one. Indeed, we partner with community colleges, and what we tell the students, okay, why don't you do your first 2 years at a community college? We'll accept those credits. You come to Rutgers and you spend 2 years, so your 4 years, and you end up with a Rutgers degree instead of a community college degree. And by doing so, you save tons of money. So that is a very fair and relevant question. And perhaps Dr. Severin and I will be talking at some point to see if there are possibilities in that area.
For example, like, we're streaming this, right? So maybe you could, sometimes you have a side stream that would go, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm playing, but you know what I'm saying, right? I mean, there's a cost associated with it, but we have to find ways to make it possible to make education more available.
More affordable as well.
Let's get one more. I think Mr.
Moderator, before you go on, I just want to assure everyone here that joint degrees is not a new concept to the University of the West Indies. We do have joint degrees with institutions, in various parts of the world, usually at the master's level. So that is something that is already in train with the University of the West Indies, and so it is something that can always be explored further. So there is precedent.
Okay, let's just before we get to Mr. Augustus, let's just get Dr. Augustine wanted to make just one quick point.
Just a quick point about what we're talking about right now. Dr. Severin is talking about the UE and the UE university partnerships, and Dr. Abney about this. But what if we could do it from the state college? I took the job as professor at Wilberforce University in Ohio under two conditions, because I retired and I was coming home to have fun. One was that I could do it from here. That was the hook. When they said yes, the other part was the reverse has to be true. That the students at the state college here in Dominica could register and get accepted and be conditionally approved for acceptance into Wilberforce and continue right on to their bachelor's without having to step out or stay right at their houses and do it. If I can teach from here to students in Ohio, the reverse has to be true. Otherwise...
Yep.
Okay, my question. People in this country, we tend to think that every other Dominican is a lawyer, is an engineer, is a doctor. And Mr. Williams said that we tend to become a factory where we produce educated people in various skills, and they leave and they go. Okay? So my question is really, we have a system where 100 students want to go study at universities, but we have already 500 engineers, 400 doctors, etc., etc. How can we fix that? Because other kids want to go become engineers, become doctors. How are they going to come back home when they know that there are 1,000 doctors already who is unemployed, and engineers as well? That's my question.
Mr. Williams.
Yeah, add something to it. Add something to it.
Hi, I'm going to add something to this which may answer your question. So I don't think it is about the quantity as opposed to the quality. So I am a very strong believer in critical thinking. I am so moved when they said it today, because teaching people to think is one of the best skills that we can give to our people today. If you teach people to think, you force them to create problems which they have to solve. So let's look at it as creative destruction. Creative destruction is about taking an existing situation and changing it to make something better. So you're taking the education system, you're looking at it from a creative point of view, and you're destroying it to make it better so that it is more apt for tomorrow's people, to students tomorrow. So it's not about the number as opposed to the quality. What can they bring in addition to what already exists? Not about being a lawyer or a doctor. It's about what do you bring to your table as a lawyer, as a doctor, as an engineer, as a plumber, as whatever profession that you want to apply.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Williams?
Yeah, I agree with that point, and to your point as well. It's not so much what people are studying. I think it's trying to align the interests with the employability of people. Yeah. So we have to look, and Dr. Severus spoke of it. The culture is that for you to be bright and to be educated, you have to be an engineer. You have to, like the Nigerians have that as well too. You must be a doctor. You must be an engineer. You must be a lawyer. Anything else you have to become, you are not quote unquote educated enough. And I think one of so we have been stuck into that tunnel where what we want our children to be is a doctor, a lawyer, and an engineer. And so we have a lot of those. And you find the space, the economic space for these people are very small in a small island developing state. The reality is, if we do not lay out the needs assessment of the country and what it needs, then you are basically, and you create formal avenues for people to gain interest in those other areas, then you're still going to have everybody as soon as their child can pass a CXC or an A-level, well, you should go and be a lawyer because this is what we consider to be the high-level professional task. For instance, right now, I mean, there was a time when Dominica had a lot of accountants. There are not that many anymore. You can hardly find one, right? Some have left, but there isn't the active student engagement in that tunnel anymore. And you cannot drive industry and business without professionals in those key skills. Now, they're not lawyers, they're not engineers, but every professional accountant will tell you that they genuflect at every discipline of every business in their professional career. And so I think what we need to do is to open the space to at the high school level to give students a broader vision as to what it is that they can be. Everybody wants to be a social influencer. Everybody wants to be a social media advertiser because that's what they're seeing online as a way that they can become employable and to make money. And so what we have to do now is to determine locally what are the areas that we need outside of doctor, lawyer, and engineer, and we do need those as well too, and what pathways can people go through. Like I said, you is the institution that is doing that heavily at their level, particularly for people in the workforce. But from the secondary education, it's still tunnel vision to pass CXC. Right? It's still tunnel vision to pass. You ask for formers. I remember when I was going SMA, Brother Jimin and them, we'd have sessions of what do you want to be and so on, and then you had to choose almost food from whether you were going to science or business. Most formers don't have a clue. They just want to pass the CXC and then they'll think about that after. Then I'm talking to young people now that want to go to university. They want to leave in January. What do you want to study? It doesn't matter is what I've heard. They just want to go to university. And so I don't think we have enough national conversation on what are we training our people to do and how are we supposed to create the industries for them to return to. Everybody's saying, oh, you send people and study and they never come back. Or there's nothing for them to come back to, like as if it's supposed to fall from the sky. We have to start doing it at a secondary level and opening up the opportunities. We're investing heavily in certain industries. For instance, I use geothermal. You're going to need mechanical and electrical engineers moving forward for the next 20, 25, 30 years in that industry. You have an airport that is coming. You're going to need aeronautical engineers. You're going to need air traffic controllers. You're going to need a lot of people that, okay, in the interim, you're probably going to have to import that based on where these projects are. But you have to build that into the education system so that that is a viable path for employment and for people can go to study to know, well, yes, I can come back and do that.
Thank you very much. I'd like to get you home before 9:30. Yeah? Let's have one more question, and then I'm going to have a call to action. So let us take 2 questions. 2? I thought I was the moderator. I want to get you home at 9:30.
Yeah. Moderator, can I say something?
Yeah.
Before the next question.
Mr. Pinard?
Yes. My concern is, like
Yeah.
most of us went to school and some fellas didn't make it, like, when you say were they non-achievers or what, but still, let us say they fell grades below us. However, they are the persons that are keeping Dominica alive. They are the mechanics, they are the masons, they are the contractors, and so on. How are we in that reform going to cater for those people?
Can I answer that question?
Yes, Dr. Larrock.
Okay, so I'm going to start by posing the three questions I started my first question with. We have to decide what the purpose of education is and what it is specifically for Dominica. And we need to find out what the interests are for our students. We also need to pivot old topics into new frames. For example, absence of the discussion, if I missed it, was how we would make students look at agriculture from an economic viewpoint. And that goes back to what the gentleman just asked, all those older professions, how are we going to get the kids interested in those? Do seminars in the summer. There's a thing called Mini Gusto where they do apprenticeship, but you can't just show it as a profession. You have to show it through the lens of economics, because we know agriculture carries an old stigma. But if I can have students understand economics, we have food coming in, we're importing. That means we're paying for things that we could probably grow right here. I remember as a student, one of the biggest topics was why the Federation didn't work. Still bitter about that, because we could have had a hell of a trade system where we didn't have to import all the things we're importing now. So it's how we send that message to engage the students. Please, when we do this, we've got to look at these questions. We've got to take years, maybe 1 or 2 years, to plan this out before we jump ship. Maybe 2 years is too long, but we can't go full steam without really methodically deciding what's most important, what can wait, and what it is we need to do right now.
Thank you. Let's.
Good evening.
Yes, go ahead.
My name is Kelvin Rule. I've been hearing about systems of education, you know. It's like we're talking about all kinds of systems, but we're not involving the student capacity, the mental conscious capacity. What about the consciousness-based education? We were talking about all kinds of systems, and we have just forgotten completely about the student's capacity. There is something called consciousness-based education that develops the capacity, the mental capacity of the student, so that they can enjoy the full potential of their life. School, for some people, is a very stressful event. For me, when I was going to school, I found it was very stressful until I got involved in mental techniques to enable me to release stress, focus my attention. I was able to focus my attention. That is what I'm talking about. There's just no mention of that. I think it's without the student mental capacity, we're just halfway on the problem.
Okay, thank you. Let's just take.
Moderator, I want to do two things: agree and disagree with the gentleman. I disagree that we have not touched on it. I think that's unfair.
Yes. Yeah.
I spoke about the mental health and wellness of the student and the teacher.
Yes.
And that is the system I spoke about on which we build AI and technology. And also emotional intelligence is all what you're speaking of is exactly emotional intelligence. How do we get students to be self-aware, to self-regulate? How do we motivate them How do we treat them? Empathy. How do we teach them the social skills? So, but again, I did concede that we have loaded a lot into tonight. So some topics can just be skimmed. But I do agree with you that the student is our raison d'etre, and we have to focus on the student. So that's why I say I disagree and agree with you.
Thank you, Dr.
But I
Severin.
think we did touch it. But given disrespectful reference to it, and perhaps you may say, because the night is loaded.
Thanks. Go ahead, sir.
So a lot
Is
of
someone
students,
speaking? I'm not hearing.
yeah, a lot of students figured out what they wanted to do, like when we were going to school, through field trips, right? So, yeah, a lot of students figured out what they wanted to do through field trips. We would go out to different places, different businesses, and someone would go like, "Ooh, I think I like that." So I think that's one of the ways that you get kids involved in what's going on around them, so they can choose, like right at an early age, what they might want to do.
I don't know if you missed it, sir, but Dr. Larocque and both Dr. Severin mentioned.
Right.
Yeah, they
So,
captured that.
Yeah,
yes.
and I was just trying to add to what Kelvin was saying.
Yeah.
And I think that was really important. And critical thinking and analysis, like data, is really important for kids, because people, you might be able to teach someone how to do something, but if they don't understand what they're doing, they never get it. They can't
Okay.
fix anything. So
Thank you.
just an addition.
Final question.
Yes,
Final,
good evening.
final.
Good evening. We're talking about students here and students' well-being. A regional exam is being set on a public holiday, Pentecost Monday. You living in Granby, it's a big national festival for the village. Your son has 2 exams, you have people, family coming over to visit. Why is it in this day and age with the AI, exam cannot be scheduled to respect local culture, family, student well-being? Why is this in 2025? Exams are scheduled on public holiday with no transportation in place, no infrastructure in place to get students to the exam site safely and back. Thank you.
That's not for me. 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 But you would agree though that Pentecost Monday is it's a Catholic holiday, and it may not necessarily be a Catholic holiday in Belize or in Guyana. So we have, as you rightly said, we have varying cultures, very different religions. So it will impact a certain number of students, but not everyone. Not everyone. Yeah. 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 But I want to move to the call to action. Okay? I want to move to the call to action because I promised you I'd like to get you home at 9:30. So finally, to each of our panelists, Dr. Larocque, Dr. Severin, Dr. Augustine, Mr. Williams, Dr. Tavernier, you have 1 minute. I think that's a little too long. So, so listen. So if you could champion just one single policy change or pilot project to be started in the next 12 months to set Dominica on this new education pathway, what would it be and why? Yes, we'll go with you.
For me, it would be to have teachers go through change management training, have the community understand what the change is about, so that they can develop a plan where we look at the polarities and see what it is we need to stop, what it is we need to modify, and what it is we can embrace. And we need a year to do that, at least.
Thank you, Dr. Larocque. Dr. Tavernier.
Okay, well, I think Dr. Augustine spoke a lot about access to resources, which is a key factor for student success. So I'm going to propose something that will provide the resources that you want. In addition, it will reduce congestion, And if it's going to provide the resources, it has to provide the revenue as well. It might increase savings. It might even make Dominica healthier. And that proposal involves having parking meters in Roseau. So you put parking meters in Roseau, then you have a revenue source to provide all the, well, not all, but some of the access to the resources that you want. So here it is. That is the government.
Thank you, Dr. Tavernier. I want to save myself the headache of putting Dr. Severin and Mr. Williams back to back. You know, so I'm going to ask. So I'm going to ask Dr. Severin to go ahead, and then Dr. Augustine. Go ahead, Dr. Severin.
No, it wasn't a complaint, you know. It was just an observation.
Yes.
I don't know whether I want to champion anything, you know, moderator. Championing things in Dominica has got me into a lot of trouble. But let me make, let me ruminate aloud, as it were. I think we're still in the realm of what Paulo Freire, in his classic book, referred to as the pedagogy of the oppressed. And that comes back to the gentleman's question about the student. The student is living in an authoritarian state in the school. Some Marxists spoke about the schooling society because it's so oppressive, and it mirrors the wider society where you go out there as obedient people. And I talk about being in trouble. And let us not be hypocritical, because hypocrisy annoys and aggravates me. As my father would say, it gets my goat. We speak about, and a lot of the countries are net exporters of educated people. You know, we have, we educate more than we can contain, because our systems, again, are not ready to absorb. But part of it is that we have not taught our people to think critically. So they think that the whole idea is to get a job in the bank, to get a job at Flow, to get a job somewhere in the private sector. Certainly not teaching. If teaching, it's a means to an end because the salary is very low. And that is the issue. We have to change those structures before we bring on anything else. And I'm saying that if you talk about championing a project, it probably could not take 1 year. It probably will not take 2 years. It is something that has to involve a mind cataclysmic shift. We have to stop treating our students like people, like slaves, you know? And that is what we do. We instruct them and they have to regurgitate. This is the same reason that I did not send my daughter after Convent High School to college. I sent her to Canada because I wanted her to get into an environment, and they had a good education system over there so that she could think. She wanted to think. She came home frustrated. Daddy, I cannot think. You know, I taught my social studies students to think. When you talk about democracy and electoral process, I taught them to think. Whatever they have become now, I don't take any blame for it or credit. That's the safest thing to do. But thinking, Dr. Irvin Andre taught us civics in high school. And SMA, again, he taught us to think. It seems that they have taken away social studies, they've taken away history. So teaching history, getting rid of that pedagogy of the oppressed scenario, teaching liberal arts, letting us know who we are. I think that is the project that I would champion if I were given the opportunity to.
You,
but it is
Dr. Severin.
long term.
Yeah. Well, I know Augustines usually find themselves in trouble. So I'm pretty sure Dr. Augustine would not shy away from that one. So what would you champion?
I would hook up with Dr. Tavernier and set that Dominica on a path, yes, from Dailies all the way through, with the infrastructure. Start putting in place the infrastructure, the digital infrastructure that will help these kids, the platform that you will need to build all these things on, you're talking about, you need that. Excuse me. Now, we're talking about critical thinking. The doctor of philosophy, that PhD, is not a PhD in something. It's a doctor of learning. Philosophia, 2 Greek words, a doctorate in the love of learning. And the thing that we forget, while we're talking about teaching children about critical thinking, we have forgotten how to teach them how to learn. Because when you teach somebody how to learn, after about a month of mentoring them, I promise you, you won't need them. They won't need you anymore. They will keep getting A's after A's because there is a simple way to get those A's. That was exactly what I did at SMA and all through. It is very, very simple. And it starts with that syllabus that we hand out. Because that syllabus tells the student exactly what they're going to be tested on. It is the professor taking that textbook, going through that, all these words in there, and saying, those are the things that I think are important to you. When you teach them that, and they match it with the objectives in the front of the chapter and test it with the questions, there is no way they won't get an A. So we have to teach them how to learn. The critical thinking part will follow.
I agree. Mr. Williams.
I don't have a project that I would champion. I'm not an educator. What I have is a wish and a hope. And the wish and the hope is that the architects of our national development at the highest level will build out the value chain to achieve those goals, all the way down to the education system that they foster. So if we're going to grow a blue economy at a national level, and this is where we want to do, then we have to build that out and know that we need ocean scientists, we need boat operators, we need people with expertise in aquaculture, and so on and so forth, and then build that, if not in the formal education system, but certainly through a polytechnic or a technical expertise building, so that we now can align the national goals and ideals that the politicians espouse to the people that are actually going to work in it. I think it seems that we have a divide where we have big thinking, high value, high ambition at a national level, but we still want to be nationalistic and not bringing anybody to do it, but we're still not building the systems to train our people to fit in. And so there's a disconnect. And so my wish and hope is that we can do that needs assessment as a country and a community and try to align all our ducks in a row, for lack of a better term, so that we can achieve those things, right? Because you cannot move a country forward in silos. There has to be all parties come into play, both at the high level, at the operational level, at the private sector level, and at the education level as well too. So,
thank you very much. It's 9:28. Dr. Arok was the first one who presented, yes. You know, you've been a great panel. Yes, excellent. Yeah. I don't know if the class of 74, 75, I don't know if Mr. Esprit Sobers, Alvin, I don't know if you are aware that currently our education system, I understood, is under reform or review. You know, we heard the Prime Minister, said, he thinks it is time to review it, and everybody was called to action to review. So I'm going to suggest that, you get maybe one or two of those guys, yourselves, and take that delegation up to Cornwall Street somewhere. Yeah, maybe you can take one or two of the questions. Don't say I wrote it. And see how we could get, some level of engagement, because there's a lot of food for thought that could probably fit into our current reform that is now ongoing. I'd like to thank you, the esteemed panel, for an excellent evening. And I'm glad my task is over. Thank you.
Well, good night, folks.
So, hold on a second, real quick. So, okay, so here is AI in action right now. So we're going to take the recording of this, we're going to put it in ChatGPT, and we're going to ask Chat to give us a summary of the most important things that were said here tonight and how we can turn them into action items so we can hand it to the Prime Minister tomorrow. All right? I think there was a lot said here tonight which was very profound. On behalf of the St. Mary's Academy Alumni Reunion Committee, I want to extend our heartfelt thanks to each of you who took part in tonight's educational forum. We were really privileged to listen to some really high-level knowledge, and it's going to change all our lives. That's what we hope, right? What made the evening truly meaningful wasn't just the brilliance of ideas shared, it was the solutions that emerged. And I like your practicality, I mean, let's not just be educated to be educated. It's got to have a reason. We got to have it's got to be for something. And then, but if we know what we're being educated for, then it becomes practical. You don't just get educated and leave. I really like that. Touched me, actually. That was really meaningful. It was more than just a conversation. It was an intellectual endeavor grounded in action, which is important. A gathering of minds and hearts determined to move from dialogue to tangible progress. So let tonight stand as both a moment of reflection and a practical guide to move forward. The insights shared here must continue to shape our policy. It really, I mean, I think the Prime Minister would be very happy to be exposed, and maybe some of the ideas who came out here tonight, to be able to curate it in a way that can be practical. I think you would probably be very happy. Am I right or wrong? We are deeply grateful for your passion, your clarity, and your commitment to our nation's youth. And we mentioned earlier on today, we have 2 students, I think, who came directly from SMA and go straight into the undergraduate program. That should be the norm. That's what in the US, that's what's done. I mean, a kid leaves school, before you finish high school, you're already accepted in some university. So I understand it's a little different here. But I mean, with long distance learning, with Mr. Augustine, Mr. Tavernier, and all their connections, I'm sure we can, and Mr. Savrin, right? Yeah, Mr. Savrin, I'm sure, I mean, there can be some collaboration to make it possible and easier for kids to be educated, Telemedicine, they do. You can have a heart operation from a South African doctor is talking to a doctor here to help with a heart operation. Why can't we make it easier for people to go to school? I mean, we talk about cost of education. It is not cheap. It is not cheap, but we have to make it affordable and we have to make it practical. I like those models you were talking about micro models. So everything doesn't have to be a 4-year degree. You know what I'm saying? And then we have to remove the stigma of not having a 4-year degree, thinking that you're not educated. It's ridiculous. We need, especially now, am I okay? We good? We good? So we have, like service industry is huge here. I know you mentioned geothermal, but service industry is huge here. I mean, you can be educated or have some type of model. What do you call it? A micro? What did you call it? You call it a model. It's some kind of. It's not a full degree, but some Yeah. But someone is trained to do some aspect of in the service industry. It's not a full degree, but at least they can give the quality of service and the level of service that makes our service in Dominica exceptional. So thank you very much. I do have to mention some sponsors. Jeez, Sobers is a whole bunch of people Sobers want me to. So bear with me. I'm going to try to do it as quickly as possible. If I run out of breath, it's Sobers' fault. So we'll do it alphabetically. AC Shillingford, Adidas, Adler Hamlet. Those are the people who would like to thank for making not only this event possible, but the whole reunion. And we do have a couple things left in the reunion, but Sobers, you're killing me. Adler Hamlet, Ambassador Leroy Waddix, Charles, Angus McIntyre, Archipelago, Trading, Ashton Luge, Bishop of Roseau, Brother Egbert Germain, Bullseye Pharmacy, Central Corporate Credit Union, Cornell Phillip, Damian Bellot, DBS Radio. Thank you, Cecil, for all what you've done. We really appreciate it. The Dean of the Roseau Cathedral, Nigel Karam, DPEX, Dominica Lotteries Commission, Dominica News Online, Dominica Public Service Union, Dr. Gerald Birmingham, Duncan Stowe, Educational Forum panelists, the wonderful people who were here today, Dr. Rosalind LaRocque, Dr. Francis Severin, Mr. Michael Williams, Dr. Swinburne, Michelle, sorry, Mr. Michelle, Dr. Swinburne, Augustine, Dr. Edmund Tavernier, and Dr. Rosalind LaRocque. I think I mentioned it twice. I can't believe that only 20% of the students are male. You know, isn't that's a reason for concern? What are the young men doing? Again, you did mention that it must be relevant. It must be something relevant to it. It's got to be meaningful, right? And I think you mentioned that there are efforts being made also to incorporate them, and even in those, women tend to. So maybe we should maybe you know what? Maybe in Dominica, maybe it's an example of women, you know, gaining prominence, you know? And it's maybe not so, I mean, yes, we want to get the guys in school, but maybe we need to, instead of, anyway. Okay, so, Eric Douglas, Fine Foods Incorporated, Franklin Moses, Government of Dominica, Hesketh Myers, HHV Wichich and Company, Hesketh Myler, Jizz Bookstore, Jennifer Fidel, Kyrie FM, thank you, Vanessa, Kenrick Jean-Pierre, Kervin Daniel, Lambert Lewis, Leonard Joseph, Lindomat Supermarket, Linford John and family, thank you, Linford, Michael Augustine, Michael Williams, and what's that? Oh, Michelle Williams, Navigant, Jesus, Sobers, Miguel Labadie, Milo Services, Multi-Solution Inc. Thank you so much, brother, for what you've done. We really appreciate it. National Cooperative Credit Union, Optics, Sharp, Oswald, Bertrand, Patrick Henderson, Paul Phillips, and Oyo Construction. Principal and staff of St. Mary's Academy. Where is, she left. Yeah, Push Past 10 Media, Q95, Ray Harris, thank you. Rupert Sorrento, TDN Radio. I know we're broadcasting live on TDN tonight. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Drago. And the sign man, Tim Duran, Trevor Bertrand and the Bertrand and Company, Tuapiton Water, UWI Global Campus. Thank you so much. And Vance LeBlanc. And what's the last guy Shane? Shane, yeah, the broker. So he helped us get some stuff off the port today. Yeah. I didn't say it correctly, you say? Okay, what am I supposed to say? And Burton and Co. Oh, Trevor Burton and Co. Okay. So I know we have some English teachers in the room today. I think my wife was the only one trying to translate, you know. So thank you so much, folks. Thank you so much. Tonight was, I mean, we all, you know, feel good about it. And as I said, we will have a transcript. We will have a transcript for the Prime Minister tomorrow, or maybe not tomorrow, but soon. Huh? Oh, yeah. So we do have some mugs for sale. So now we're selling stuff. We do have some mugs for sale. They're $25. It's to raise funds all for everything that we do this week, folks. Feel free to contribute as much as you want, because it's to raise funds to repair the roof of the Egbert Jumin wing. SMA Alvin going to kick me out now, I think. Thank you very much, guys.